Good morning, Year 4. Welcome to your maths lesson for Wednesday, the 3rd of February. Today we're going to be doing tenths. So as always, we're going to warm up first. So could you pause the video here and could you order these numbers from smallest to largest and think about which is the best way to start ordering numbers. Remember, we need to look at the biggest column first, and in this case that's the thousands column. Off you go. Okay, so if we look at the answers together, we can see that looking at these quite easily, if we're looking at the thousands column, because that's the column that's worth the biggest amount, we can see that the 5,001 is going to go at the start and the 7,001 is going to go at the end. And then all the ones in the middle all start with 6,000. So then we need to move into the hundreds columns and into the tens columns in this case to put those in the correct order. So pause here if you need to and have a check that you've got those in the right order and that you understand why they're in that order. Okay, moving on. So tenths today. If a frame represents one whole, so this is a frame here, okay, like a tens frame, what does each box represent? Well, the clue is in the title up here, isn't it? What is a tenth? So each one of those boxes represents a tenth. So what I would like you to do is to draw in your book, using a ruler, a tens frame like this. So draw a rectangle filled with 10 squares, and I'd like you to represent the following. So I'd like you to colour in 1/10 on one of them, then draw another frame, represent 2/10, draw another frame to represent 3/10, and a final fourth frame to represent 1/10 less than 8/10. So can you have a go at that in your book for me, please? Okay, when you've done that, hopefully you should have something that looks like this. If you look at the first two to start with. So this is 1/10. So there's a tens frame and I've got 1 out of the 10 coloured in. Okay, so if it was a bar of chocolate, the whole bar of chocolate is 10 pieces, which is what this is. How many tenths make a whole? So 10 pieces make up the whole, and I've got 1/10 of it. Okay, I've got 1 out of 10. Here, the same, but 2/10. So I've got 2 squares coloured in. It's a good idea to put the squares next to each other, but you could have coloured in any 2 squares. You might have coloured in that one and that one. It doesn't matter which 2 they are, as long as you've got 2 coloured in. And then we've got 3/10 here. Okay, so we've got represented as a fraction and on our tens frame. And then the last one is 7/10, because 1/10 less than 8/10 is 7/10, and I know that because 7 is 1 less than 8. Okay, once again, I've coloured them in all next to each other, but you could do them wherever they are. It doesn't matter if you've not got those particular 7 coloured in, as long as you've got 7 in. And if we look at our steps to success, when you divide one whole into 10 equal parts, each part is worth 1/10. Okay, so let's move on. Next job. Identify what fraction of each shape is shaded. Give your answer in words and as a fraction. So you can see my example with the green squares. There is a tens frame and it's got 3 coloured in squares, 3 coloured in green there. So I've written 3/10 and then 3/10 as a fraction, 3/10. Okay, so can you pause here and do the same for A, B, C, D and E? You don't need to draw the shapes in your book. Just write A equals B equals like that. I'm going to write it in words and as a fraction. Off you go. Okay, so let's look at the answers together. So A is 5/10 because 5 pieces coloured in, although they're not touching each other, there still are 5 pieces. B, I hope you could see that there was 4. I tried to do dots on them to make that a bit clearer. 4/10. C is 3/10 because 3 are coloured in. D is 2/10 and E is 1/10. Okay. And hopefully you wrote them both as words and as a fraction like that. Okay, next one. Annie has 2 cakes. She wants to share them equally between 10 people. What fractions of the cake will each person get? So there are 2 cakes and they're shared equally between 10 people. So the sum that we are doing is 2 divided by 10. 2 shared between 10. Okay, and so each person will get 2/10 of the cake. Okay, of the total cake. They'll get 1/10 of one cake, won't they, and 1/10 of another cake. That'll be 2 bits of 10, 2/10 in total. Okay, so if you think about that, if I'm one of those people, I'm going to get 1/10 of this cake here, and I'm going to get 1/10 of this cake here, so that'll be 2/10. What fraction would I get if Annie had 4 cakes? Well, I would get 1/10 of that cake and 1/10 of that cake and 1/10 of another cake and 1/10 of another cake, and altogether that would add up to 4/10 of the cake. Okay, so can't see that line very well, can you? Never mind. Okay, so I get 4/10 then of my cake. So moving on, fill in the missing values. This is a part-whole model or a whole-part model, depending which round you say it. So if I've got 10/10 here, so the whole one here, and then 6/10 there. What goes with 6/10? How many tenths do I need to put in here to go with 6 to make it up to 10? Okay, and then whatever answer I've got in here, these two need to add up to there. So pause here and have a little go at filling in that part-whole model, please. Okay, let's have a look together then. So the first one is 4/10 because 6 and 4 make 10. Okay, so we've got 6 pieces and we've got 4 pieces, and if we put them, those 6 and those 4 together, it makes the 10. And then here we've got 1 already, and it needs to add up to 4. So how many more do I need to put with 1 to make 4? The answer is 3/10. Okay, so that's, sometimes those are more tricky than they actually are. Let's move on. So silver task today. Tenths are created when a shape or number is divided into 10 equal sections. How many tenths are shaded in each of the following shapes? So I'd like you to try and write the answer in words and as a fraction. So the first one, for example, we would write the words 3/10, and then we would write 3/10 like that as well. Okay, so try and put them both ways. Hopefully not as huge as mine and in the way of everything. I'm sure you'll be a bit neater. Okay, and obviously you don't need to draw the shapes out, you just write number 1, number 2, number 3 like that. Okay, so do those for me, and you can pause and do that. And then we can move on to the gold task, which is which one is the odd one out? Explain your answer. So pause and have a try at that one, please. Okay, and then you can have a look at the answer here. The marbles are the odd one out because they represent 8 or 8 or eighths. All the other images have a whole which has been split into 10 equal parts. Okay, so moving on to platinum. Which of these images are the odd ones out? Explain your thinking. So you can pause here and have a go at that. And when you've worked out the answer to that one, you can tell me on Dojo if you like, and I'll have a look and see if I think you're right. So try and explain why the one that you've chosen is the odd one out. Okay, and then that's the end of your lesson for today, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow for some more tenths work. Okay, bye-bye.